I'm here today with Lisa Battaglia of Battaglia Communications. Lisa, thank you for sharing your time and your expertise for us.
Thank you for welcoming me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Hey, Lisa, with regard to strategic communications, marketing, things that you do, how does that relate to safety and improving safety in an organization?
Yeah, so I have obviously a marketing communications background, but I've also worked in a lot of safety sensitive industries. And what I've noticed is that sometimes communication around safety is missing, particularly understanding how to talk with frontline employees about safety in a way that resonates with them, that's impactful, and that makes them want to do the right thing even when no one is looking. And so I think that when it comes to safety, the foundation of safety is communication. You have to be able to share expectations, policies, procedures, and have a way for people also to communicate back, opening up lines of communication for frontline employees to talk with their managers, to talk with the C-suite. And that communication flow is essential to ensuring that safety is happening in an organization.
Yeah, safety nowadays, I don't think that the Nike slogan of just do it gets across to employees and is effective. What's the best way to get the message and to get, more importantly, safety practices by frontline employees consistent with what a company wants?
Yeah, well, I think the just do it comment is interesting. What's missing there is the why, right? Why do I need to do this? Why does it really matter to me? Why does it matter to the organization? And I think starting all communication around that question of why, what's in it for the person receiving that information, what's in it for the person who is actually performing the, safety sensitive job is so important. And I think part of the communication kind of how to pull people in is to remind them, well, the why is your family, right? The why is that we want you to get home safely every night. The why is that our organization and everybody here that works for this company is depending on you to do the right thing, to be safe. Our clients are depending on it, and the public is depending on it. So I think starting with the why is your foundation, right? And then in terms of ways to communicate that out, remembering that everybody receives communication differently. I personally am a visual learner, so when I see something, I will remember it. I don't always necessarily remember it if I just hear it one time. If I hear it multiple times, yes.
Mhm.
Other people are different than that. You say it one time and they'll remember it. So keeping that in mind when it comes to how you're communicating or how an organization is communicating with their employees is having various modes of communication. So maybe that's email, maybe that's a phone call, maybe it's a video for visual learners, maybe it's a brand that you're establishing inside your organization that's a reminder of mission, vision, values. Maybe it's a letter that's sent home, not just to the employee, but to the family too, explaining your safety mission. But it's important to have a bunch of different avenues for communication and not get stuck in this, well, we send an email, so therefore we can check the box. It just doesn't work like that. And I think too, we all are so bombarded by emails that sometimes people just stop reading them or they click on it, they open it, maybe they see it, maybe they don't. And I think there's got to be a strategic plan around being a little creative, thinking outside the box, and really making sure that the message lands and that it's understood by the recipient.
Yeah, Lisa, what I see a lot of times is companies will put together manuals that are produced by the pound. They lay them on the drivers. They have the drivers sign an orientation that they received it and read it and this. And then when we get in depositions, that did you receive the manual? Yes. Is that the manual? Yes. Did you ever read it? Well, and there's a disconnect there. And I
Sure.
think in terms of today's world, just like you said, we have so many different ways that people get information on an individualized basis between, text. I think most marketing has pretty much abandoned email marketing, to an extent, but it's text, it's videos, it's short videos, it's TikTok. to align that with the individuals to try to throughout the spectrum of the company's individuals and the way they learn to address that with what the folks have there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the email is just we're bombarded by them. There's just so
Yeah,
many. And I think being creative and finding, starting with the understanding that that may not be received, and it's essential that that message is received. So if that's the case and you feel like, the team isn't reading emails, or you have no way to gauge whether or not, opens are happening, click-throughs are happening, it's time to rethink a communication strategy. And I think with the handbook too, it's Doug, I see this all the time when I meet with clients for the first time. The handbook is this big. It's
yeah,
400 pages long. I wouldn't read it, and I don't know that we can expect that team members are going to sit down and read a 400-page, detailed, very dense policies and procedures manual. And so I do work with companies on that a lot, because there is an effective way, or a way to create a really effective policies and procedures manual. And a lot of times that comes from having employees be part of that process, because they're the ones who know how to perform their job duties, right? So that's where marketing and communications and then your frontline employees collaborate, is they're able to feed you, here's the way we best perform our jobs. You get everybody into a room, they talk about it, and you create something based off of that, that's in a way that people are going to understand. And it may be sometimes there are pictures that go along, go out to the yard and you get snap pictures of your drivers performing these particular safety sensitive tasks, include those, and that helps create something that's easy to digest, and it's not going to be, your 400-page non-read handbook.
you're talking to the person who in high school, Lisa, was, I don't have homework tonight, it's just reading. So, I don't say this in terms of our driver, workforce or anything else. I think it's just human nature. You see
Sure.
these pages, and particularly in today's world, like lengthy paragraphs. When I write for court, even then I put a summary at the beginning, 2 sentence paragraphs, to avoid the migo that we have in today's world with a lot of this stuff. So
Sure. Well, I think too, I mean, the way we digest information has changed.
yeah,
We've got things like, these social media platforms where your space is limited to communicate. And
right.
so we're starting to think that way too. When we see long paragraphs, no one wants to read that. Or you see a huge handbook, that can be intimidating to some
Right.
people, and just seem so cumbersome. So I think getting straight to it. What is really needing to happen here, and writing it and illustrating it in a way that's digestible for everyone, because we all also read at different levels, right? I mean, sometimes if we're going to have this really big long explanation on how to do things, that gets lost, I think.
One of the things that really struck me when I watched your presentation when we were on the program together was the notion of, and I think it's often missed or forgotten, of marketing safety to the employees. Because in many ways, it's a sale, it's marketing to them. Uh, the approach and how to do that, Lisa, what are your thoughts and suggestions on it?
Yeah, so you know typically I think we think of marketing as external, so
Right.
we're marketing to our clients or potential clients. We're trying to explain to them what we have to offer and get them to buy in to our brand. And I think what's missing in that, is that we forget that our most important customers are our employees.
Right.
Everything starts with them. And if we don't have them, we don't have customers. So
Yeah.
treating our employees as our most valuable clients or customers is important. And in that case, if you start to think in that way, you have to market and communicate with them, and particularly around safety and safety sensitive industries. So taking the concept of safety and communicate it in a way that creates buy-in, which is essentially marketing, right? And I think that one of the best ways to do that, for organizations to start is to create an internal brand. So just like we all, Battaglia Communications, my company, we
Right.
have a logo, you have a logo, we all do, right? And that logo is a representation of our mission, vision, values. It's a representation of what we do. And so when our clients see that, they think, oh, Battaglia Communications, she does this.
Right.
They see your logo, Doug does this. So what is it, if we're kind of flipping that switch and we're talking to our employees, what is the logo that represents safety? So that when they see that logo, they think, this is a reminder of our company's mission, vision, values. This is a reminder that I'm supposed to do the right thing, that I need to get home to my family safely every day. So I work with clients a lot on that process of how do you create an internal safety brand. And the biggest thing that I think when this is created that's missed is, when you're establishing your company brand that represents, your organization as a whole, oftentimes a marketing team will come in, they'll present a bunch of different ideas. You choose, C-suite chooses what that looks like.
Yeah.
But in this case, I think when you're working with employees as your customers, they should be the ones responsible for creating this brand, and that's what's going to create ownership in it, and that's what creates that buy-in, that engagement from the very beginning. So I work with organizations on how do we solicit to employees to say, what are your ideas? Like, what are your 3 to 5 words that represent what safety means at this organization, and start getting employee feedback. It's always amazes me how many people will respond to that. They want to be involved. And then you kind of go through this process of let the team vote on it. And then marketing and communications can step in, create a couple logos to accompany it. But then again, send those out to your team members, let them vote on which one they like, and that's what you run with. And so, establishing, I think that's a really great place to start when you start to think about marketing to your employees, is start with your internal safety brand and then build from there.
So am I correct to, in effect, for lack of better terms, is an easier sell when they're involved in the process throughout the process and from the very beginning?
Absolutely. They're owning it, right?
Yeah.
And they're not being told what to do. No one really wants to be told, but we want to be involved. And to say to someone, here's our safety brand, is that going to register, is that going to land? But to say to someone, what do you think our safety brand should be? Well, now you're creating engagement on a whole bunch of different levels, right? You're showing, one, that you trust your employees to be part of this process, that they are heard, that they're valued, that their opinions matter. And that is essential to safety, right? Is that open line of communication.
Now, I've read enough behavioral psychology to be dangerous, Lisa, disclaimer. But one of the things I saw in there was that when people said they were going to do something, logically, it greatly increased their commitment to do it. And they used it from voting to stopping smoking and things like that. It's almost that same principle would be using and getting the buy-in initially and getting that commitment right from the workers themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. They're the ones owning it from the beginning. I completely agree with that. And it makes sense, right? If you feel involved, if you take ownership of something, then you're more likely to carry it through.
Now, let me ask you one of the key questions, because I know we're going to get it from Timmy in accounting. What's the profit, or what's the benefit to the company for this type of marketing to the employees?
I mean, it's direct bottom line results, right? You're talking about safety. One safety failure can completely knock out an organization. Not to mention just, obviously the toll that when a safety failure occurs and you have a catastrophic incident, that is just, the ripple effect of that is horrific. And the idea that safety is expensive, or safety is not worth investing in, I'm hoping that everybody agrees that that's extremely outdated thinking at this point. Safety
Absolutely.
is your best investment. First of all, it's your duty to invest in safety, because you want to protect your people and you want to protect the public. But I I think that when you put these when you have a communication strategy in place and you start to execute upon that, you're going to start to see less incidents, right? I mean, direct bottom line results, but also you're creating a more engaged workforce. And that's essential too, because now you've got people who want to do the right thing, who want to stick around. We know like retention is a big issue, especially in the trucking industry. Recruiting is a big issue. And so if you can hire the best and get them on board with your safety mission and you're communicating with them and they want to stick around, then you're not having that rotating door I mean, hiring people is expensive, hiring and firing, you know. So you see bottom line results there. And then just the overall, you know, people want to show up to work. You don't have that dread of coming in. They feel valued at an organization. You see lower absenteeism. So I think absolutely investing in a strategy to promote safety and communication is going to massively benefit the company. And then on the flip side of that, how, you know, the question I get a lot is, well, how do I take my safety culture and flip that to the outside so that I can bring in the best clients? And I think most people realize that clients just don't want to work with unsafe companies. It's too risky. No one wants to, you know, it's again, goes to your bottom line. So when you can take, you know, that's sort of the role I think of marketing communication strategy is once you implement your internal strategy, it's the responsibility of your marketing communications team to flip that narrative and that story to the outside to share it with customers and potential customers so that they understand that they're working with the best, that you're investing in your people, and then they want to be on board with you too. So both sides, you know, I think you see bottom line results.
Yeah, we see it both ways in trucking. I'm doing a presentation this year called Safety Profit. And when companies now, with the increase in insurance premiums, now have to take on a lot of the risk themselves to keep their premiums from increasing more, the safety is what will go and is the most effective way to get on the bottom line.
Yeah.
Anything now with any unsafe acts, any accidents come off the bottom line. The flip side is that the attorneys out there on the billboards who are suing trucking companies, most trucking companies only have $1 million of insurance, or many do. They're looking for more pockets and they're going after the clients, the customers, the shippers on that. The shippers can't afford to ship with an unsafe company anymore.
Right.
So that's the flip side of it. And the shippers are more cognizant of that, of making sure the safety issues on that as well. So.
Yeah, and it's so important for people to realize that when you do create that internal marketing communications strategy has to have that flip side to it too, right? There's
Yeah.
got to be a way to communicate it externally. And that doesn't mean, you know, we were talking about internal branding. That doesn't mean that clients or potential clients see that brand. It's not about that. It's about them understanding that there are all of these processes, these avenues of communication in place. Like you are building this strong safety culture, and that's going to show on the outside. And that's where, you know, you flip that messaging. That's crucial to this process.
And it's got to be, I take it, genuine on the inside. It can't just be company speak,
No.
because employers are going to see right through it.
Yes. Yes. When I present, I use this example. You know, I think with AI, with Chat GPT right now, we can spot that a mile away. I think people are tuning into it. And so when you run something through that and then you share it with your team, it just loses its authenticity. It doesn't feel real. Like, who are you talking to? You know? And I think it is so important that there is a real message around recognizing who people are, why it matters, and that you're really speaking from the heart, you know, as maybe cheesy as that sounds,
Yeah.
it is true. Like it can't be this you know, generated message that's just not going to resonate. But I also think on the flip side of that, that employee engagement, right? That's going to start to create that voice as well, that it's not just the C-suite creating the voice of the company, it's your employees creating the voice of the company through their engagement and involvement too.
Lisa Battaglia, thank you very much. Battaglia Communications, greatly appreciated, and greatly appreciate the message and the work you do. Invaluable, and I think more companies could benefit from what
I
you're doing.
appreciate
Thank
you,
you so
Doug.
much.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.